It's my privilege to read today from Romans 10, verses 9 to 15. I'll be reading in the New Living Translation. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God. And it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. As the scriptures tell us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced. Jew and Gentile. Jew and Gentile are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord who gives generously to all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they have never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is why the scripture says, how beautiful are the feet of the messengers who bring good news.
I'm going to call Ryan to come and join me up here. Ryan Rempel is our speaker today. He is the founder and director of a ministry called Give the Word. And I believe Ryan's a guy who likes to tell stories, and he's got lots of stories because God it seems to always be doing something miraculous in his life. And so I imagine we'll probably hear some stories this morning, right?
Hear a few.
Okay, good. I wanted to hear stories. So let's pray, and then Ryan will get going. Father, as we look at your word now, we open ourselves to you. We invite you to speak into our lives. Encourage us, strengthen us by your word this morning. Amen. Welcome here.
Thank you so much. Good morning. This never used to be comfortable for me at all. And if someone would have told me, 15 years ago that this is what I'd be doing for a living, speaking in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, sharing the gospel, giving Bibles away, I would have laughed them out of the building. And that is not where I was. But here I am, and I am so grateful that God's plans are far different from our own, because the trajectory of my life would have looked a lot different. And I'm the director and founder of Give the Word, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But I think one of the first things in my life that got me prepared to talking to people about myself, about God, was I was about 19 years old. It was the first job I ever had. I was not living as a believer back then, but my first job was a telemarketer. I have never experienced that much rejection in my life. And rejection is something that did not come easy to me. I had a very rough past, and I took rejection very, very personally. Why I took that job, I have no idea. I was not prepared for that at all. And I wasn't very good at it either. But I knew I had to make money because it was all commissions based. And so I was just dropping the ball. I was not making money. And I figured, I got to do something here to change this. Like, I need an income. And I could always see the person's name on my screen when I called out. So I always knew who I was talking to. And this lady came up, and it was, I can't remember her first name, but I think her last name was Fredrickson. And so I introduced myself as, I said, "Hi, my name is Ryan Fredrickson, calling from AT&T. And she's like, "Oh, you're a Fredrickson." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, wow, where are you from? And so we started talking, and I was just like, I was not telling the truth at all, and I would never do this again. But she started telling me about her life, and we had this crazy conversation, and then she bought what I was selling. And I was like, I wonder if this could work. So I started using everybody's last name as my last name, and I was killing it. Like, I was making almost every sale, and people were telling me where they were from and their backgrounds, and I was telling them where I supposedly was from and my background, and we had these amazing conversations. But you know what? It took me out of my comfort zone completely, and I loved it. And what I got to love was hearing people's stories, was just having these crazy conversations. Mine weren't true, but theirs, I'm assuming, were. And I loved it. I loved hearing about people. And that really took me out of my comfort zone and got me on this trajectory of being involved in positions where I was dealing with people. And I love people, and I have a burden for people. And now I get to do this full time, sharing the gospel and talking to people and training people how to do that and connecting with ministries, and I love it. And it was about 6 years ago that God really called me to what I'm doing now. I was working for another ministry at the time, but I just really felt like my passion was just local outreach. My heart was for sharing my faith, and the first time that I ever shared my faith was in a prison. I was doing volunteer prison ministry in my late 20s, and that was my first exposure, or my first actually opportunity that I took to share the gospel to the most intimidating crowd I could think of, and it was amazing. I fell in love with these guys at Stony Mountain Penitentiary. They were amazing guys that did horrible things. And I really connected with them, and I saw them, I watched them respond to the gospel, and I thought, man, I've been missing out. Like, people actually respond to this. Like, maybe we were actually designed for God. Maybe people actually do have a longing to hear about this. It was amazing. And so, close to 6 years ago, I started Give the Word. I resigned from my position of what I was doing, and I really had no idea what this was going to look like, but God just kept on giving me the words, give the Word. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I started this process of what would it look like to start a ministry from scratch, and it scared me to death. I have a wife and 3 little kids and a mortgage. I need an income. And so this was terrifying for me. But I contacted this ministry called Equip Canada out in Victoria, and I got to know them through my in-laws over the years. And they take ministries under their wing so that they can start up. And I talked to them about what I wanted to do, and they said, Ryan, they said, we already know you personally. Why don't you just come under our umbrella if you want to start Give the Word, and you can be accountable to our board. You can raise your funds through us, and we'll just help you get started. So I thought, wow, okay. That's a huge hurdle that I don't have to go through now. And so after a lot of prayer and discussion, I decided to start Give the Word. And my first week, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to make the Bible free and available for ministries and individuals to use for outreach. And I wanted to share my passion and hopefully infect others with the same passion to share the gospel. And the first week that I had started, I went to go see my father-in-law. He works for an insurance company, and the owner of the company was there. And he said, Ryan, I heard your father-in-law was telling me some sort of a ministry you're starting. Tell me about that. And so I told him, and he goes, wow. He said, where's your office? I said, I got nothing. I got my phone in my car. And he goes, well, how is that going to work? I said, don't you need like warehouse and office space if you want to, distribute Bibles? And I said, yeah, but I'm going to have to raise funds, and I don't know how that's going to look like yet. And he comes back to me about 2 minutes later. He says, you know what? I said, I need to help you. I said, I have a brand new building. He said, I'm going to donate office and warehouse space to you rent-free. I thought, oh my goodness, like who does that? And so I started working out of this building, and I contacted Tyndale Publishing in Chicago and told them that I want to use the New Living Translation. What would 10,000 Bibles cost me? And they gave me, the Bible that I chose, they gave me a cost of $80,000. And I thought, okay, I got to raise $80,000. I don't even have my personal support raised yet. How's this going to work? And so I was kind of discouraged about that. And I just gave this ministry to God, and I said, God, if you're in this, please provide. And about 3 days later, it was Friday of May long weekend, they called me back and said, Ryan, We don't know what it is about what you're doing, but we feel connected to it. We want to be involved, and so we want to bring that down to our cost. So we're going to give you these Bibles at $2.38 a copy instead of $8. I thought, there's no way. And they said, the only catch is that we have to have your funds in within a week if you want this order. And I thought, well, Friday of May long weekend, I can't raise 24 grand over May long. There's no way. But God can. And so I got on my email and I contacted everybody that started supporting me and a whole bunch of people that said no. And I said, I'm just shamelessly asking again. I need 24 grand in 6 days. And here's why. And my email lit up. And in 6 days, we had just under $30,000. And I ordered these 10,000 Bibles from Chicago. And I went to a trucking company and I said, can you give me a discount? I need 10 skids of Bibles shipped to Winnipeg. And they said, yeah, we'll figure out some sort of discount for you. And they took me for coffee the next day and they said, we're not going to charge you for this, and we will do all of your future orders for free. And we had a printing company come on board that got all of our promotional material done and our website for free. And Give the Word was completely birthed in a month. And I had absolutely zero overhead. It completely brought me to my knees. I was in ministry 5 years prior to this and never, ever had something come together like that before. And I am so glad that it did, because I gave this ministry to God when I started it. And through these series of events, He showed me it was His. 'Cause I did nothing other than being a willing vessel. He did everything. And since then, we've been able to donate over 250,000 Bibles across Canada and into Latin America. And we're now donating over 50,000 Bibles a year. Most of them staying within Canada, doing local outreach and evangelism through people like yourselves and ministries. And it's absolutely amazing. We get stories every single day of how the gospel is going out and getting shared, and then how people are responding and receiving Christ and lives being transformed through God's Word. It's absolutely incredible. And we now work out of the Youth for Christ building in downtown Winnipeg. We outgrew our original space, and they came on board with us and donated office and warehouse space to us there. And it's absolutely incredible God is doing with this ministry, and I love it. I don't have a job. I get to do this. I don't have to do it. And it's absolutely incredible. Just to kind of give you an idea of how God works, I had to throw out most of my notes that I was going to talk about today, because God just kept on doing crazy things over this week. And so I've kind of changed a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about. Same topic, just some different stories. I was in Steinbach on Friday visiting some potential donors, and I had a lot of work to do, and I was not planning on coming back to Winnipeg. But I got a call that this Bible order had come in that had to go to Nunavut in the Arctic. And so this Bible order had come in, and I thought, well, I could put it off till Monday, but I figured, man, I could probably get this done today if I really rush back. So I rushed back to Winnipeg, and I figured I'll pack these Bibles up in 2 minutes, and I'll take them off to the courier. And while I'm there, I get this text. And the only thing this text says is, hey, man, I need a Bible ASAP. Can you send me one? And it was from a guy that I know in Toronto who only a few years ago had been just a hardcore atheist who loved challenging Christians on how stupid their religion was. And he is a very intelligent guy who had a lot of answers and could very easily back people into a corner. And through a series of miracles, he met Christ, gave his life to the Lord, and is now sharing the gospel like every day. We're constantly sending him Bibles. And so my response to him was crazy timing. I was just in the office for 2 minutes packing up some Bibles to go out. Must be a God thing. And he calls me a minute later, and he's laughing. And he said, Ryan, you have no idea what's going on here. He said, I'm sitting in a bank in Toronto, visiting with my banker who's financing my business. And she's a Hindu. And I just got the sense that God was in the room. And she looks at me and she says, there's something different about you. And I don't know what it is. And he just took this opportunity to share the gospel with her. And she said, this is amazing. She's like, I've really been struggling with my religion and on the whole idea of God. And I never, ever open up to people about personal things. And here you are. And she had so many questions for him, and he just started answering her questions. And she's breaking down, going, this makes so much sense to me. And he says, do you have a Bible? And she says, no. And he says, I'm going to get you one. And she says, no, you don't have to go buy one for me. And he goes, no, I got a guy. I got a Bible guy. He's going to send me one. And he took this huge leap of faith, and he said, I believe that God is at work here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to text him. All I'm going to text him is that I need a Bible ASAP. And he's going to respond with some sort of miraculous timing response. And I believe that God is going to do this. And he said, I'm going to text him, and I want you to read his response before I do. And it just says, wow, must be a God thing. Crazy timing. I was just here for 2 minutes. And she broke down and she says, I want what you have. And she says, little do you know is that only a couple of days ago I woke up during the night and my daughter in her bed was singing the words, Hallelujah, to the hymn, to the tune of the hymn. And she said, I remember hearing that song as a little kid, but my daughter has never heard that song. We're a Hindu family. And he said, I went over to her and I said, where did you hear those words and that tune? And she said, nowhere. She said, nowhere, not at school, from friends? She said, no. I said, how do you know that song? She said, I was dreaming about it, so I started singing it. And it was at that moment that got her on the trajectory of, who is God? Who is God? And we got to be involved with that story. It was incredible. I honestly believe that we are God's plan A and there is no plan B. We are God's plan A to get the gospel out, to share our faith, and there is no plan B. One of the statistics that I learned about not that long ago of what evangelism looks like in North America is that only between 2 and 5% of Christians are active in sharing their faith. 2 to 5%. I thought there is absolutely no way that that's true. And I started meeting with pastors and talking to them about this and other ministry leaders. It's true. And this was a survey done over thousands and thousands of people who would call themselves Bible-believing Christians. 5%. What gives me the right to keep this from someone? Nothing. So why did it take me so long to do this, and why do I continue to not take opportunities that I should take? Because what reason do I actually have? The worst response that I've ever had of trying to share the gospel or trying to tell my story is the word no. No, I don't want to hear it. No, I'd rather not listen. No, I don't want that Bible. That's the worst thing that has ever happened to me. And so what excuse do I really have? Well, I was a little bit uncomfortable. I didn't want them to say no. I can't see God going, oh, well, yeah, no problem. I get that. When there are people like in Turkey and across the world that are absolutely dying, risking their lives for their faith and risking their lives telling other people about Jesus, and here we are in North America going, I don't know, I'm good. I'm saved. My family's good. What about your neighbor? What about the person that walks by you on the street? What about your doctor, your dentist, your coworkers? They need to hear this because there's no plan B. And it's too big of a job for the ministries and the pastors and the churches to do. It's too much. They can't effectively reach everybody on their own. But man, I did some digging. And I found out the approximate number of how many Christians there are in Canada. And if each believer would share the gospel with about 15 people in their life, or in a short span of time, Canada would know about Christ. But they don't. I was on a plane last summer in July. I was speaking at a conference in Thunder Bay. And I don't know about you, but I fly a lot, and I always used to just say, God, would you please give me a row to myself so I don't have to be beside anybody. I don't want to be squished. What a horrible prayer. Please don't let me talk to anybody. I have so changed that. Now it's like, God, would you put me beside somebody who's willing to talk, who's got an open heart and an open mind, somebody with a sense of humor. And I was getting on my flight, and I just said, God, would you put me beside somebody who loves to talk and has a sense of humor? And I just said that prayer quietly before I walked on the plane. And I get to my seat, and there's one other guy there, and he looks like he's in his mid-40s or so. And I just said, hey, I think I'm in your row. And he goes, oh. And I'm like, what? And he looks at me and he goes, you are so not the cute blonde I ordered to sit beside me. And I was like, this guy's awesome. We are going to have a good talk. And I said, sorry, man, you're stuck with the bald dude. And so I sat beside him. I said, hey, what are you doing in Thunder Bay? And he goes, oh, I'm a broadcasting executive from Saskatoon, and so I'm going out to meet clients. And I said, tell me about your job. And so he's telling me about his job, and I said, where are you from? And, Saskatoon. And asked him about his life, and I just let him talk. I just asked him questions. And people do like to talk. They like to talk about themselves. We're all a little bit narcissistic, right? We like to talk about ourselves. We like to talk about things that are exciting to us and things that are going well and about our lives and what we're proud of. And so I just asked him questions and just let him talk. And he goes, hey, I said, what are you doing? He says, what are you doing in Thunder Bay? I said, I'm speaking at a youth conference. And he goes, what do you talk about at a youth conference? And I said, I'm just going to be talking about how Jesus has been really changing my life and how I'm able to use my story to share God's story. And I just want to equip these youth to do the same. And he goes, wait. He said, what do you mean Jesus changed your life? Yes. And so I was able to share my story with him, and I incorporated the whole gospel into my story. And he looks at me and he goes, I have never heard that. A 45-year-old white guy from Saskatoon, and he's never heard the gospel. I said, you've never heard that? And he goes, well, he said, I know that the religion of Christianity exists and that God and Jesus would somehow fit into that, but what that means or what that looks like, he said, I have no idea. He said, I wasn't brought up in a religious home at all, and frankly, it's never really interested me. But he's like, you got my attention. And I said, well, what do you believe? And he goes, I don't know. He said, I would consider myself to be more of an agnostic. Who's to say what's out there? I lean more towards the science end of things. Maybe there's no God. And he said, this is really interesting timing that I'm sitting beside you. He said, because my dad died not too long ago, and I've really been struggling with where is he? And if he's nowhere, what's the point of anything? And so we had this amazing conversation. And he just goes, man, he's like, do you have like a Bible for dummies? And I said, man, that's the only kind we got. And he goes, great. He said, could I have one? I said, absolutely. And so I gave him one. And we talked from the time that we took off to the time that we walked to the airport in Thunder Bay, and we haven't stopped talking since, and that was a year ago. And he doesn't understand. He keeps on saying, why do you keep in touch with me? He said, don't get me wrong, I like it. I like you. But why? You don't know me. And he's completely blown away why I take time out of my day for him, to talk to him. I've been sending him books, and I've been buying books and sending them to him. He's like, why are you buying these things for me? Like, I can give you money. I said, no, man, it's a gift. And he just does not get that concept. And I know God's working on him, and he's not a believer yet, and it's not my job to save him, so I don't have to worry about the end result of that anyway. It's my job to make Jesus known. And I could have either said nothing to him and kept the conversation to myself, or I could take a leap of faith and bring Jesus into the conversation and watch God work. God shows up every time. Every single time I take an opportunity, God shows up. And that does not mean that they're receptive to the gospel. That means that I'm taking an opportunity to make Jesus known. And he's right there. He's right there, knocking on their door going, respond, respond. It's not up to us to save anyone because we can't anyway. But it's amazing what happens when we take opportunities to share the gospel. I was at Missions Fest in Vancouver a couple of years ago, and I had brought about 500 Bibles with me or so, and I had them stacked up on our table. And with this, we had a banner that just said that they're free, and there's like thousands and thousands of people at Vancouver Missions Fest. If you've never been there, it's quite amazing. But anyways, people would come by the table and go, "Hey, these are free. Can I have one?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "Hold on, though." I said, "You can't keep it." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "You have to take an opportunity to share your faith with someone. So that Bible's meant for somebody else, that you have to give it away." I was blown away. Most of them were put back. Most of the Bibles that people ended up taking were put back. At Missions Fest, where people are there to get involved in missions, and here's an opportunity. You can go do this for free. You don't need any training. Just go give it away. See where it leads. And they'd put it back, and I'd ask why. And I compiled a list of responses that I got. Well, I wouldn't know what to say. Neither do I. Every conversation I've ever had has been 100% different. I'm not actually a missionary. Are you a believer? Yeah, you're a missionary. You're either active or inactive. But you as a believer are called to share the gospel. It was never suggested we do, it was commanded. Well, I wouldn't know who to give it to. Me neither. That's the point, kind of. People don't want to hear about Jesus. They most certainly do. If we believe that we are created by God, for God, that means that every single person on this planet has a God-shaped hole. Well, the Bible says share the gospel and when necessary use words. It most certainly doesn't. I have yet to see Jesus and the disciples share the gospel without words. My life's not good enough to share. Mine neither. Never will be. I'm scared of rejection. Who isn't? I don't want to. I don't want to. I got that response a lot. How are we calling ourselves believers if we have no burden for people? If we have no burden for the person beside us of what their lives look like and where they might end up, how do we have the love of God in our heart? I don't believe that we do. I was at a church in Calgary about 2 years ago, and I just said, I want to do something here. It was at a church of about 400 people, and I said, everybody I'm not going to do it today. I just said, everybody put your heads down. Nobody look at anybody else. And they said, who here would say that their faith is the absolute most important thing in their life above anything else? Raise your hand. Almost the entire church raises their hand. I said, okay, we're off to an awesome start. This is fantastic. I said, now be super honest here and don't look at anybody. I said, who here can say that they are actively engaged in sharing the gospel with people during the week in any capacity? About 8 people raised their hands in a church of 400 people. I said, folks, how can we collectively say that our faith is the most important thing in our life if only 8 of us are doing this? We can't. I think we want to be. And you know what? Honestly, my hand isn't always all the way up either. There's days where my hand is over here because other things take priority. I'd rather talk about the Jets. I'd rather talk about my family. I'd rather talk about what I do or anything other than the gospel. There's a guy named Todd who came to our office a while back. And he was holding this Bible in his hand. I'd never seen him before, and he knocked on our door. So I said, yeah, come on in. And he said, I need to know what you guys do here. And he had this intimidating voice, and I was like, uh-oh, what happened? And so I told him what we did, and he just goes, well, whatever you do, save my life. I said, okay. I said, what happened? And he said, I got this Bible. I had no idea it was a Bible until I brought it home with me. And he said, I thought it was just a book. He said, I love to read. I'll read anything. He said, I brought it home, and I started reading, and I realized that I was reading through the Bible for the first time in my life. And he said, I got through the whole New Testament in 3 days. And the only conclusion that I could come to at the end of this book was that I needed Christ. And so I'm just here to let you know that I've done that. Wow. He said, I'm 42 years old. I'm a successful salesman. I have a wife, 2 grown teenage kids. And he said, and I am now the first believer in my entire family. The first one. And he said, you have no idea what kind of rejection I'm facing. He said, my wife wants nothing to do with me. My kids think I'm a loser. My family does not understand what's going on here. He said, I've never been happier. Ever. He said, this book has answered every question that I've ever had. And we formed this friendship, and he took me for coffee. And he was saying, Ryan, he said, have you known about Jesus your whole life? And I said, yeah. And he said, I got a bone to pick with you. He said, not you personally, but you as a longtime believer. He said, help me understand why Christians like you rob people like me of this message by keeping your mouths shut. What am I supposed to say to that? I had nothing. And he said, I almost died in a drunk driving accident that was my fault. I was so close to death, but I didn't die. And I don't know why, but I now know where I would have gone if I would have. And he said, and that would have been on all of you. Because you people choose to say nothing to people like me. And he said, when I got saved, all I wanted to do was talk about Jesus. He said, what else is there to talk about? He said, this is the best news that I have ever heard. And he said, you don't know what you have. He said, why aren't you guys talking about this all the time? He said, I found out that there was 12 other believers that worked around me in my office. He said, I've been at that office for years. And I get to work after I got saved, and I just start talking about it. And people are congratulating me, oh, Todd became a Christian. That's amazing. And all I could think about was, how dare you? How dare you keep this from me? It's not fair. He said, I realize that I may not have been receptive to it. He's like, but why wouldn't you try? Like, nothing happens. Nothing happens to you when you try. People might say no. He brought me to tears. I had no good answer for him. I had no explanation to give him that would cause him to understand why. If you ever want to be encouraged in your faith, hang out with a new believer. Oh my goodness. He challenges me. It's amazing. You know, I heard the same response at a church in Kenora. He said almost exactly word for word what Todd had said to me. I spoke at a church in Kenora, and there was this huge biker dude, just full of tattoos, super intimidating, and it was crazy. He said, how have I never heard this before? He's like, this is the best news I've ever had. He's like, I'm in my late 50s now, and I'm only hearing about this now. He's like, I just became a Christian a couple of weeks ago. He said, what else is there to talk about? He's like, this is fantastic. Like, I'm actually saved. Like, I am. That's amazing. We're God's plan A, and there's no plan B. So how do we do this? If you follow Jesus' example, I took a look at how Jesus and the disciples shared the gospel. And I found a reoccurring theme is that they almost always preceded their gospel message with an act of service, love, or a miracle, which gave them the permission to share the gospel with them. So I started putting that into practice, and I thought, what would it look like if I would go do something so crazy and outrageous for somebody that it would cause them to ask me why I would do that for them, and now they've given me permission to tell them. I want you to watch this video of Maureen's story. And this was an opportunity I took a couple of years ago. Super uncomfortable. The whole story isn't on here because it's a long story. But it was really uncomfortable for me to step out and do this. Totally out of my comfort zone. But God showed up. My name is Ryan Rempel. I'm the director for Give the Word Ministries here in Winnipeg. We give away Bibles and we encourage people to share their faith, and it's something I try and do, but I was driving down the street one day and just doing some errands for work, and I saw this person sitting on a bench, and God just told me to approach this person.
I was sitting there thinking, I guess I was in my own mind, just a thought. He drives up. All of a sudden I hear, "Excuse me." I turn around, I looked up, and there he was.
And I had $10 in my wallet, and God just said, "You need to go give it away." And so I did that.
I says, "No, thank you. I don't want it. It's okay. No, I have to do this." I felt a nudge.
And I gave it away, and I knew she was confused as to why I was giving it away, and so was I. But I knew I needed to obey that little nudge that God gave, and so I gave it away. And then God said, "You're not done yet. You need to pray for this person." And so I said, I'm sorry to bug you again, but can I pray for you? And she welled up with tears, and she said, "I have cancer." And so I sat down beside her and I prayed for her. And I don't even remember what I said, but I prayed. And, she gave me this big hug, and she turned around and walked inside, and I went on my way, and I thought, God, this can't be the end of this story. There's got to be more. So I went back to my office, and I grabbed a Bible, and I wrote a letter with some of my testimony, my story in there, and the message of salvation with my phone number. And I said, God, you got to connect me with this person again. I don't know how, but you got to do it. And so I went back to that apartment building that I saw her at, and I sat there for about an hour. And she didn't come back out. And I went back again that evening and sat there again. She didn't come back out. I went back the next morning, sat there again. She didn't come back out. And so I thought, well, maybe this isn't going to happen. And I went to the store nearby to buy a couple things for my dad. And I went to the checkout line, and there she was in the checkout line.
He says, "Please don't go away. I have something for you." And I looked at him. I said, "Okay." He gave me this Bible. I wasn't expecting it. I says, "Thank you very much. What is this for?" "It's for you. I had to give this to you." Then, Maureen, I fully believe in Jesus Christ. I believe just as Jesus says in the Bible, anyone who believes in their heart that I am the Son of God and that I died for your sins must be saved. I read this letter and I cried at home. I thought nobody would do something like that.
And about a week later, she called me and said, "Ryan, I've been reading that letter and that Bible every day, and this has changed everything." And I just knew that I wanted her to get into community with like-minded people and with the church that would just love on her and accept her. I wanted her to feel that, and so I invited her to church. I've learned that there's never a bad time or a bad opportunity to reach out. Usually, I find that it's when it's most uncomfortable. That's when you need to do it. And so I've just really found that no matter how uncomfortable it feels, just reach out and love on people and just watch God work. It's amazing. Maureen passed away last Christmas, and still hits me every time I think about it. I could have just kept driving. I really wanted to keep driving. My day was way too busy to take that interruption, but it was a divine interruption. They always are. I want to challenge you with something. Each of you have one of these. If you don't, I have extras in the back. In this case, married couples don't count as one person. We each have a responsibility to make Jesus known individually. And so my challenge to you is go take an opportunity. Go do something so amazing for somebody, someone you may not know. And watch them ask you why you did that. And be prepared to tell them. Take an opportunity to share your faith. Give yourself 2 weeks to do it. If you leave it open-ended, you're going to leave it forever. I know from experience. It'll sit on your counter. Take an opportunity, because God will give them to you, and you'll walk by many of them. I still do. But you're going to walk by a lot of opportunities. We don't actually have to ask God for opportunities. He gives them to us every single day. Just take one. Start with one. Do it once. And I guarantee you, you're going to want to do it again and again and again. And I hope this becomes an addiction for you like it has me. I love it. It's amazing. We get to be a part of God's story. He doesn't need us. He chooses us. We get to do this. And He's called us to do it. And so that's my challenge to you. And what I want you to do is, there's a card in here that says, how did you give your Bible away? Share your story. Write down your story of what happened, positive or negative, because you're going to have some negative experiences too. Write it down. That's still awesome. You did it. Send it to us. We want to hear what happened. And the second card in there is, if you want to support us, we'd love to have your support. We send out about 50,000 Bibles a year, and every year that goes up by a lot. And so we need a lot of help to keep it growing and keep it going. And but it grows through people like you, sharing the gospel, getting the Bibles out of the warehouse and into people's hands, because they do no good sitting on a shelf at all. So I hope you take the opportunity, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to equip you to do it again. And so really contemplate and concentrate on the back of your bulletin that we read at the beginning. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Son of God will be saved. But how are they going to know unless we tell them? Think about that. And then just do it. I'd love to pray with you guys. Father, just thank you for this morning, and I thank you for the freedom that we have to do this, the opportunities that you give us, Lord. What an incredible freedom that we're allowed to do this here. Like, that's amazing in itself. And God, would you give us the courage to boldly reach out to people around us, to start conversations in the most craziest and random of circumstances, Lord. Would you just cause us to open our mouths and bring you into our conversations, Lord, and just watch you work. And God, I just ask that you would just give everybody safety and just tons and tons and tons of opportunities this week, Lord, and just convict of the missed ones. Just convict of the missed opportunities so that we recognize when you do give them. In Jesus' name, amen.